Good evening. Welcome, everybody. What is this month already? My goodness, it is October.
Yeah.
It's the October meeting of the virtual chapter. And, um, and I am Michael Watson,
And I'm Karen Hand. Good to see all of you.
and we are your hosts for the evening at the virtual chapter. This is by the way, it would not be appropriate to do a broadcast like this without giving out our call letters, don't you think?
Sure.
So as a matter of fact, the virtual chapter is something that I started a long time ago, just as a monthly local meeting. Got adopted by or grandfathered into IACT and IMDHA, so we are a recognized chapter of IACT and IMDHA, and we have subsequently been endorsed by the International Hypnosis Federation, for those of you who are affiliated with that group, and the ICBCH, for those of you who may have affiliation with that group. And for those of you who don't have affiliation with those groups, we are affiliated with them nonetheless, and you are just as welcome. So we're really glad that you're here. We are right now recording this program, and I want you to know that I think it's important for you to know that, because we are going to keep this recording, and if any of you should act up or misbehave, we may sell a copy of it to your mother. I do want you to, it's true. And I do want you to be aware that your camera is quite possibly on. So, if you're walking around your room or whatever it is that you're doing, there may be people watching you. And that's really an important thing to see, because if by chance someday you may decide to run for office or be nominated to the Supreme Court, somebody just may drag up that video, and it just could be all kinds of problems for you. So act right. And the recording will be available tomorrow. It will be posted in the virtual chapter group on Facebook, and it will also be posted in the IACT IMDHA forum, and it'll, I'm sure, pop up in a number of other places as well.
I'm just thinking, it could make a very interesting spoof reel for the banquet at the next IACT IMDHA banquet, could it not? Some of the things that go on behind the scenes in the chapter.
Oh, yeah. That would be great. We could just get some of those pictures and zoom them in.
We will not be doing that, I assure you.
Yeah.
What happens in the virtual chapter stays in the virtual chapter, which of course goes live on Facebook and all sorts of other places. So it's kind of open.
Yeah, and speaking of the virtual chapter, by the way, if any of you are not members of the virtual chapter, it is a group on Facebook. It is not the virtual chapter or anything like that. It's simply virtual chapter. If you look up the group, you can click on and join that group, and that way you'll get the announcements of all of our upcoming meetings and everything exciting and wonderful that's going on in hypnosis land. And for those of you who are members of our affiliated organizations, and probably other ones as well, it's likely that you'll be able to get CEUs for spending time with us this evening. And the way that you do that, if you're an IACT and IMDHA, you just log into your members account online and indicate that you are here for the virtual chapter, that you spent an hour and a half with us, and you want to get credit for it. And that's all it'll take. And other various organizations, I'm sure you know what your organization's procedures are, and most groups will accept it. You've invested some time in the study of hypnosis. So I'm getting winded, and that's why I'm so glad that I have my associate Karen Hand to sort of step up and step in, because I know you mentioned a little bit about this in the, what do I call it, the pre-show, I guess, before we got underway. But just for the record, tell them about our class. This is a lovely thing, and I'm really proud of it, and you should be really proud of it as well.
I loved it. I was very, very proud of it. We've talked about it a little bit here in the group, and I want to say the way Michael and I did it was, he had a group in Orlando and I had a group in Chicago, and we did a live weekend introducing them to hypnosis and teaching them how to hypnotize. And then we were able to combine our two groups for 18 weeks of live online training via Zoom. And so we had students from Wisconsin and Illinois and Florida and Costa Rica. And it was just wonderful to bring all of these great minds together and let them work with each other and practice with each other. As you know, with Zoom, you can have breakout sessions, and we actually had practice sessions each week. And Michael is about to do his. I had just completed my final live weekend, and happy to say we certified 7 new phenomenal hypnotists. I was observing them. We had volunteers come in for the final day on Sunday, and I was observing them and almost in tears as I was watching them use their creativity and their flexibility and work with what was presenting. And it was just very cool. So I'm proud of it. I can't wait to continue to train via Zoom and to continue to do more classes with Michael this way, and even do more things where we can bring in the world.
Yeah, and it was such an experiment for us, and and I think we really found a way to make it work. And the one thing that I think is always important is the issue comes up. What if, and people are asking that and indicating what the problems are. And often when they indicate what the problems are, what they really are doing is simply jumping to the conclusion of it can't be done because there are problems. I think the challenge that we took on was, what do we need to do to overcome those problems? What particular software can we use? Various things that would make it work. What sort of assignments can we give them to do live in real time in their own places and in the breakout sessions here. And the breakouts, by the way, the breakouts are so good, man. One time I got into a breakout session and it worked so well that I had to get a salve in order to clear it up.
But then we all know how contagious Michael can be.
But no, it was just really truly a lovely experience and very rewarding. And and we're proud as heck to have done it, and appreciating you listen to us gush about it. Yeah. So the other thing that I think we need to talk about before we get underway with our guest speaker, and I hate to keep you waiting in the wings, Graham, is Chicago, that toddling town. What's happening there? Tell us.
Well, look at how beautiful it is in Chicago this time of year. Fall is here and it's gorgeous. Great time to be here. And in 2 weekends, not this weekend, but next weekend, the 19th, 20th, and 21st, will be the Mid-America Hypnosis Conference right here in Chicago, just a little on the north side of Chicago. So it's kind of out of the outrageously expensive hotel range and into an affordable area. And we have a lovely, very friendly little conference here every year in Chicago. Michael will come and do a 2-day post on evolutionary hypnosis, and he's speaking. And we have a lot of we are a non-denominational conference, so we have representatives from all of the different organizations and some people who don't even belong to an organization. And it's a wonderful group of people. It's a very taste. It's a good time. So if you're interested and you still looking for something to do on the weekend of the 19th, 20th, and 21st, come to Chicago and join us for the Mid-American Conference.
And then, of course, on the 22nd and 23rd for that 2-day post-conference on evolutionary hypnosis.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and one last thing, and that is that next month, I can tell you, we have our speaker for next month. We're going to be talking to Mark Andreas. And as some of you remember, we mentioned it last month, Steve Andreas, Mark's father, had died just a few days before our chapter meeting. So basically, we're going to have Mark on, and it will be dedicated to Steve. It'll be a tribute to Steve. And what Mark is going to share with us is the self-concept work that Steve developed. There's a lovely book, Transforming the Self, that came out of it, and some real interesting material. So I'm looking forward to that one next month. Anything to add to that, Karen?
I do not. I mean, I'm eager for it, but I'm really eager to hear Graham tonight. I'm very excited about this. So I don't mean to rush us along, but
yeah. Well, are you as eager as Lodachowski? Yeah. I never realized that was his first name before, but it just occurred to me. Yes, well, so tonight we have a really special guest. His name is Graham Old. He's a lovely gentleman that I became aware of, gosh, I can't even begin to think how many years ago, but when I first logged on to HypnoThoughts, some of you don't remember that HypnoThoughts is also a website and a forum, and Graham was quite a contributor back at that time, and I was fascinated with what he was talking about. He has a website that's how to hypnotize. I'll let him tell you to make sure we get the URLs right in a couple of minutes. Graham is a solution-focused therapist. He is a hypnotist and an author from the United Kingdom. So again, just like last month, we've got a guest speaker who is up in the middle of the night in order to be here with us, and we really, really do appreciate that you do that.
Yes, we do.
He's a former pastor. He also has experience in social work and mentoring teenage dads. And that, by the way, seems like something that could be a show in itself. Graham is a popular speaker, writer, and trainer with over 2 decades of experience teaching meditation and self-hypnosis. And much to his surprise, now this is what his bio says, mind you, much to his surprise, he is often regarded as an innovative presence in contemporary hypnosis. It's delightful that you're surprised, and I know you needn't be. The interesting thing is that to me, he's been such a contributor all along, ever since I've known him. So we're really glad to have him with us. He's developed a popular therapeutic inductions approach, which we're going to talk to him a little bit about tonight as well. In terms of being surprised, Graham, I'll let you know my own experience, at least, is that it is a long, hard climb to the middle. So, so we're just really glad to have you, and you needn't be surprised because everything that I've seen you do has been just stellar. And I have finally unmuted your microphone. So say hello, buddy.
Hi, great to be here.
Yeah. Well, we're just thrilled to have you. And one of the things that occurred to me is that we really have never talked on this forum, not yet at least, specifically about solution-focused hypnosis. And immediately I thought, oh my gosh, this is the guy to go to for that. I think a lot of us have been trained, at least in this group, a lot of us have been trained in traditions that start out with the presupposition that the best thing that you can do is regression, and I'm all in favor of whatever it is that works. So I'm not looking for a position with regard to these things. But what I'd really like to have you help us understand, Graham, is how it is that solution-focused hypnosis is unique as a field. What is it that sets it apart?
That's a great question. I think there's a number of things. Predominantly, there's the mindset, and a lot of what's unique about solution-focused hypnosis has seeped into other types of hypnosis because of the influence of Erickson. So things like being strengths-based, looking for resources within the client, being future-focused. These are things that come up in NLP and other forms of hypnosis, but they actually form the focus of solution-focused hypnosis.
Yeah.
The idea that if you can get someone to imagine another possibility and to become entranced by that possibility, that increases their expectation for it, and that enables them to walk into it. So rather than it being simply kind of pie in the sky or a goal they hope to get to once they've resolved all the issues in the past, they actually begin to expect it because they've lived it a bit through the hypnosis. So it's very much, ideas like the answers within you, everyone's got the resources they need. In one sense, it's very basic stuff, but when it's all put together in the right package and delivered in the right manner, generally through a particular kind of conversation, it is quite powerful.
Great. As a matter of fact, one of the things that I was thinking as you were saying that is that for me, at least, it was a natural, I would say a lateral step from NLP to solution-based hypnotherapy. And I think my first exposure, it's sort of funny because for me, solution focus is where I started. And it wasn't something that I had learned another way or a different idea about it. And then, and then came into this, but it was like, this is where I started. And I was kind of surprised by everything else.
Yeah, I was very similar. I came predominantly from a pastoral counseling background, just from working in a church for a number of years.
Yeah.
Discovered solution-focused therapy as part of that, which obviously led to Erickson, who was, was one of the main influences on Steve DeShazer. and found hypnosis afterwards, which just seemed like a natural development. And natural development, but also quite an exciting new avenue to go down. It was like, oh, this might be a new way to do solution-focused therapy.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole concept of trance, I use the term very loosely, the whole idea of people accessing their resources, kind of going for internal search, all this sort of stuff made complete sense. I think that's because of Erickson. It just kind of flowed naturally from that route.
Nice, nice. There's so many different directions. My head is spinning with the possibilities of where this conversation can take us. To me, there was this idea from the beginning, and something that I think is fundamental to my understanding of hypnosis. And I'd kind of love to hear from you if this is in line with the way that you're thinking about it. And again, and I'll remind everybody, the thing that I can do is I can describe to you what the world looks like from the vantage point that I have, and I don't for a minute make the assumption that the way that I look at this is the correct way. I'm not really quite sure that there is a correct way. I think, there's this interesting massive hallucination going on that we share enough of sometimes that we think we understand that we understand the same stuff in the same way. I simply know that there's an inclination, an evolutionary inclination for us to move forward or to expand outward, and there's a couple ways to look at that, but simply an awareness of where do you want to go is the most important place to start. So in the 70s, by the way, and here's where we really connect, and I can so relate to you in that I was doing pastoral counseling in Chicago at the same time. Not at the same time. So I was doing pastoral counseling in Chicago in the late 70s, and what was going on in counseling psychology was creative visualization and guided imagery processes and all of these wonderful creative things that were all aimed towards moving someone or helping someone find a way to move forward. And I loved using them. And one day in the middle of a process, a client, or actually at the end of the process, but a client sort of came back and said to me, Michael, this is actually hypnosis, which startled me, hadn't occurred to me. I don't know what I thought it was. Well, of course, I thought it was meditation. And that was the tradition that I had, that I had been raised in. And we seem to have, some commonness there with regard to that. And I can't help but think that it influences the idea that what we're up to when we're doing therapy with clients is creating something new.
Absolutely. I mean, you probably know that in 1978, Steve DeShazer wrote about the crystal ball technique from Erickson. I think it was in the American Journal of Clinical Hypnosis. And he was using hypnosis in the early days of solution-focused therapy because it's just such a natural fit. And for me, I think we often meet clients who metaphorically might say they're stuck or have no sense of hope, who feel so crushed by their present because they believe they're tied completely to their past, that they have no sense of the future. And for them to come in and for us to essentially play a few imagination games with them, can open their eyes in incredible ways. But one of the challenges we face, I think, is the whole therapeutic arena has had such a stereotypical model for clients of coming in and fixing all my past problems. So some clients will come in and you have to really work with them to help them figure out what they actually want. They know what they don't want. Mm-hmm. They know what they want to avoid. They know what would be bad for them. But they haven't even begun to imagine what might be good for them, what they actually want. And for me, some of those conversations that in some models of hypnosis we speed past, they're not that important. For me, they become kind of core, they become central. Even just talking about outcomes with someone can, when it's appropriate, it can take a whole session, because it can, for them to suddenly realize, I've got options, there are alternatives. That's powerful stuff.
That is a powerful shift to create right there, just having doing the intake.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's a powerful shift.
I think one of the main things we do with people is help them go from an external locus of control to an internal locus of control, whereby they're not just victims of circumstance. They create, their world around them. One of the reasons I think that's really important is because when someone has that sense of internal control, they can then give up on the need to feel they have to control everything. If they feel safe enough that they can step out and live the world and create the life they want to live, that frees them to not have to do that all the time, which I think is really quite powerful.
A lot of times a client comes in and the first thing that they do is that they describe a problem to you, and every once in a while I see hypnotists asking the question online or in various places, well, what do I do with a client who has this problem? And my response to them is always the same. It's like, well, ask the client what he wants.
Yeah.
Because often we think that it's our job to figure out what the solution to that problem is and to try to find some way to, get it into there.
I actually like the way Richard Nongard puts it, and Graham, you may say exactly the same thing, which is, Richard says, dealing with my client's problems, I don't fix my client's problems. That would be way too big a thing to do. I help my clients find their resources and then let them apply those resources. That's absolutely right, I believe.
Well, absolutely. I think if we're trying to help clients gain a sense of control over their lives, but by doing that we create a dependency on us, then we're working backwards. If we can give them resources or help them discover they have the resources all along, it doesn't make us as much money, but it sets them up to go off and live their future.
Michael was talking about he came to it from this place, and I kind of did too, because my first entree into hypnosis was through an NLP expert who was training hypnosis. He was applying NLP to hypnosis. So that was my first training. I didn't know there was any other way to do it. And as I learned and watched and went to conferences and learned other things, I heard about age regression and wanted to learn about that. Got involved with a very authoritative trainer who said, this is the only way to do it. This is the only real hypnosis, and you must do it this way, and it works every time. Do it on everything. I believed it. I'm pretty suggestible. I said, all right, I know exactly what to do. So I did it, and I did it, and I did it, and it just didn't work every time and wasn't appropriate for everything, and opened up a can of worms on a lot of stuff that didn't need to be opened up. And when I went back to that original training, Graham, just like you're talking about, and just looked for solutions, started reframing and asking the right questions to uncover solutions, it just worked so much better.
I think I speak quite openly and consistently against regression, as my own opinion. And it's surprising how often I'll come up against hypnotherapists. I'll come up with hypnotherapists who almost don't know of any other technique.
Right.
But just recently on a forum, someone was asking about a phobia. I think it was quite a basic phobia, and one of the responses was, look for the root cause, look for the IAC, and so on. And I said, I personally don't bother looking for the root cause. And their response was, well, what do you do then? As if it was almost this idea that regression is hypnotherapy.
Right.
So there's not much else we do.
Yeah.
Well, I do some regression still, but regression to look for resources. Is there recall a time when you were confident? We go right back to that time and build up the confidence, but that's a whole that's just looking back in time for those resources to apply them to the future.
Yeah, we've got a good question here, if I can interrupt, from Don, who and this is Don Palace month, by the way. We didn't notice that.
Yes.
So but it's really a good question. He says basically, if a person cannot consciously come up with a goal or a solution, how appropriate is it, or when is it appropriate for us to do something to ask the unconscious to come up with solutions outside of the conscious awareness or outside of the constraints of the session?
I don't know how appropriate it is. I personally don't do that because, again, I don't want to give any sense that even though this was in them, they need me to get it for them. I want them to feel like I was just kind of there cheering them on whilst they found it. For people who really struggle to get a sense of what they want, we can begin talking about, so they got a sense of the problem, they know they don't want the problem, and we can talk about what's there when the problem's not there. What was life like before the problem? How do they imagine life will be without the problem? Friends they've had who've had that problem and it's solved, what do they have now? Because I think people get in a problem trance. Again, using that word loosely and kind of experientially. They get in a problem trance where they just can't imagine life without it. So rather than giving them the answer, I want to tap away at that problem trance. And one of the main ways of saying, well, what's there when the problem's not there? Or if you don't want a problem, what do you want?
Yeah.
And very often people will say, I don't know, because that's their instinctual response. And the general response to that, which quite a few solution-focused therapists will use, is saying something quite cheeky like, but if you did know.
Right.
That was David Ruby's question, by the way, not mine.
Yeah, I was going to say I misattributed the question to Don Pellis because I was preoccupied with it being Don Pellis month.
That's right.
but yeah, it was David Ruby's question. And
other things you can say are, they may not know the solution, they may not know what they want, but they might know part of it. So you can say, well, if you knew a little bit, what would it be? Other times, just waiting, giving them time. There's no rush for them to make these massive life changes. So they may not know straight away, but if they think about it, they sit with it, things might come up.
And perhaps there's something that they could recognize as evidence of progress, even, right?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Right. There's another question up here from Antonio that I want to, before he gets lost in the chat here, what kind of solution-focused techniques, Graham, do you use with self-hypnosis?
Mainly lots and lots and lots of future pacing. But future pacing in terms of not will the future be, but just opening up the possibilities. I think psychological flexibility is one of the greatest strengths we can help people discover. So kind of I'll take myself into a self-hypnotic experience and just imagine the possibilities and enjoy kind of being my own director in the movie and going from scene to scene. That just works for me personally. I think the miracle question, which is probably one of the most well-known solution-focused techniques, works quite well in a self-hypnosis setting. I don't tend to use it that often with clients, actually. And one of the interesting things about the miracle question is it came up as an exercise in utilization. Insoo Kim Berg, who was the partner of Steve Zishazer, said to someone once, what would your life be like if you woke up in the morning and a problem wasn't there? And apparently the woman said, that'd take a bloody miracle. And so Insoo Kim Berg said, okay, well, imagine a miracle happened tonight and you're asleep, so you didn't know the miracle had happened. What would be the first thing you noticed in the morning to tell you that a miracle had happened? Which was a great example of utilization.
Sure.
And over the years, it's become the opposite of that. It's become this fixed kind of exercise that you must say and do in this way. But personally, it works for me in a self-hypnosis setting just because I'm used to it. And kind of, when I begin asking that question, my mind goes off in the right directions. But I don't tend to use the talk of miracles or magic, especially when I'm with clients, and give the wrong impression.
Graham, I know that it's important to you. You sort of indicated it a couple of minutes ago that the client have an appreciation that the success, the resourcefulness is really something that comes from them. It is about, after all, about empowering clients and and having them appreciate that they in fact did this. So I'm curious with that particular frame around it. How do we think about something like deep trance identification, for example, as a technique to carry into the future their sense or experience of someone else that they consider more resourceful? That's a complicated question, I realize, but it just got I got real curious about that.
I think if I use a technique like that, I generally will use someone quite close to them. So rather than picking a hero or picking a celebrity or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
I will pick someone they know who's had this problem but has come out on the other side of it.
Okay.
And that seems to bridge the gap a little bit, because they can relate to the problem, so they don't feel necessarily this person is miles away from them. They can just see it as another example of solution.
Sure.
It's not an exercise I use that often.
Well, I do have the sense, if I were doing deep trance identification with, say a celebrity, or say Milton Erickson, everybody's favorite person to do DTI with, I'm not really channeling Milton Erickson, and it isn't really Milton Erickson's resources. It's essentially Michael Watson's filtered understanding of Milton Erickson, and really still is something that comes from me. And I think it would be the same thing for any client if they were to imagine how, what would J-Lo do, for example.
Oh, that's what WWJD stands for.
Yeah, you didn't know that.
Of course.
It all makes sense.
But it is, in fact, not J-Lo, but there's always room for J-Lo, but that's a whole other thing.
Let's not bring up that reference, shall we?
Yeah, not J-Lo, but their understanding of J-Lo, right? So it really is something that comes from them. And so,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think in solution-focused therapy, there's this practice of compliments, which can be really cheesy and has to be done, I think, quite elegantly. Otherwise, it just feels patronizing. But yeah, you congratulate someone for using their powerful mind, for using their imagination, for being able to go in a certain direction. All the time trying to reinforce them that this is working, not because of a technique, but because of their engagement with it.
Great.
I think that's very important. I'm not really a techniques kind of guy. I'm a very basic person in my practice.
Mm-hmm.
There's this thing we do in our training called P3. I don't think I've mentioned it to you before, which refers to having a positive, powerful presence. And it reminds me of a story when someone was watching Stephen Brooks give a seminar, and he was sitting with his client, and he said to the client, right, at the moment, you're the most important person in the world to me, and carried on with the session. And afterwards, someone said to him, I'm really interested in that technique you use, where you said to them, you're the most important person in the world. Why did you do that? And Stephen Brooks just smiled and said, because it's true.
Yeah.
And I think, if someone's lived their life in this problem trance, they have all these messages about themselves. Something as basic as sitting down and really giving them proper focus and attention and engagement, being impressed by them, giving them the sense that you believe in them, really simple stuff. This can be really powerful. And the techniques and the little bits we do afterwards, that's not the magic. Magic is in having them have a spark of hope again.
My gosh. Well, Graham, I'm in awe, because, and this is so important to me, that I really believe, with regard to all of the techniques in the world, even with regard to all of the paradigms about hypnosis in the world, there are some people who, by virtue of who they are, create by nature a healing presence, and whatever it is that they do with a minimum of technique can be very, very powerful and moving. There are other people that can know every single technique that there ever was, and every single step of them, and do them without missing a beat, without that intimacy that you're really talking about, and it's not going to work. So the power of the connection is so central to, if I'm hearing you correctly, the power of the connection is so essential in what it is that we do.
Absolutely. I think the idea for me is almost hope is contagious.
Mm-hmm.
that if I can go into someone's hopeless setting and have within me a sense of hope for them that is so real that they can see it in my eyes, that they can hear it in the respect I speak to them with, that they don't feel like I'm doing something to them, that begins to rub off. They almost need to fight not to have hope, because they can feel their mind and their attitude changing just as you're sitting there with them. I think it was again Stephen Brooks who said, on our first piece of training with him, he said, if by the end of his training you can't hypnotize someone just by being there with them, I've not done my job very well. And actually I couldn't. But it became a bit of a challenge to me. I thought, actually, yeah, it's that sense of being hypnotic rather than just doing hypnosis.
Yeah.
And I would like people to feel that when I'm working with them, that I'm doing something to them.
Nice.
You know, like when you first meet someone who's just started training in NLP and they're talking to you and tapping your arm all the time because they think they're anchoring something. And all they're anchoring is frustration and annoyance. I don't want my clients to feel like I'm doing techniques on them.
Yeah.
I want them to feel like we're imagining together, we're exploring some exciting stuff.
And the magic word we're imagining together, I am putting the mojo on you and you are imagining as a result, or any of those other things. But we are on a journey together.
Yeah.
Well, and it goes back to that old fundamental of, if you want to help them get to a place, go there first. If you want to help them see their hope, have hope for them first. You know,
Really.
yeah, see them at their best. Imagine them at their best and what they want. And that is going to start, that becomes the lead in the dance, does it not? That becomes the lead dance step.
Yeah, I think so. And I think, like I say, I think that kind of hope is contagious. And I think you can see it in a client's face when they start to begin to pick up on it. You can see a lightness come over them. You sometimes see a small grin kind of beginning. And that's an amazing moment. When, I mean, you could say you haven't done the work yet, but I think you really have. If someone who's been kind of stuck in this place and can see no way out of it, can see no tomorrow, has no hope for the future, if you see in their eyes they're beginning to go, but what if? To me, that's beautiful.
Yeah, yeah.
Nice. Well, Graham, I want to shift gears just a little bit, because we've got a couple topics to share with you, and sort of in between them, I just want to acknowledge you are a moderator on Hypnothoughts. Is that right?
I'm not anymore, no.
Okay, so you have been, at least.
I was involved far more than I should have been. I found it a really exciting place at one point to see people kind of coming onto a forum having not a lot of skills or experience, and seeing them kind of grow in front of you was really exciting.
Well, oh my gosh, I mean, it grew so quickly and became such a huge thing. And of course, for anybody that's listening that just really doesn't know about this, this is where Hypnothoughts Live, the Las Vegas conference, basically came out of what was first an online forum that had 16,000 members, or more than that, perhaps. I don't know how far it finally got, but was really trafficked by everybody, who finally said, why don't we get together sometime and see one another in the same room and have bowling and pajama parties. So it's still out there, and if any of you aren't aware of it and you're interested, hypnothoughts.com will get you to the website and register, and there are discussions going on about various topics of hypnosis. It is my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong about this, but I think it's good when you enter into a forum like that you do put on an extra layer of skin, because some people really don't have a lot of tolerance for folks that have a variety of interesting ideas that aren't the same as theirs. You can have all the interesting ideas you want, as long as they match up with mine, and we'll be to each other. But if you're on the other hand interested in sharing some stuff with some of the beautiful folks that really are out there. By the way, David Ruby is on this call here. He's somebody that I know that I met through that forum. Antonio Perez I met, I believe, through Hypnothoughts, and so many of the folks that that have been on this, on this meeting. So go out there. The other one, by the way, and pardon me, Graham, for interrupting long enough to make a commercial here, because not only for that, but IACT and IMDHA also has a members forum that really could benefit from a little more traffic, and it's a lovely place to share in a very protected environment, by the way. So you don't need too thick of a skin for that one, and you just log in with your user ID and all that stuff. And if you don't know how to do it, call the folks at the center at IACT and IMDHA, and they'll tell you how to log in. But nothing so good as community in order to really support us in what we do, so that hopefully somebody does have a different idea than mine that just might, spark me enough to, to do something else and something further. So we're all in this together, as they say.
I love that Zen concept. Sorry.
I'm sorry, say it again?
I love that Zen concept of beginner's mind.
Yeah.
You're not the expert, you're always learning. And I find it genuinely sad when you meet some people who are so determined to impress someone else that they haven't let their guard down, they haven't allowed themselves to learn something. I find nothing more exciting than kind of learning new things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's almost a spiritual discipline of mine to take up hobbies that I know I'm not very good at. Like ukulele, or I did Aikido for a number of years. These were things that I was never going to be an expert at, and that was really good for me. And there's often a culture sometimes amongst hypnotists of trying to be impressive. I think we believe our own hype sometimes on our own sales pages.
Yeah.
But it's great when you get a community of people who are just wanting to learn together and kind of build each other.
Sure, and it's nice when that thinking muscle inside of our head doesn't atrophy from lack of engagement. So,
Right.
so a real good thing to do. And I swear, I have hundreds of friends that I know because I have participated in various online forums and organizations and associations and things like that. And I'm just all for that. So let's come back to the topic, Graham, because what that's all about is all about the power and the quality of connection and recognizing that we really are a part of something. So now let's segue right back in here. And when we are with our clients, then that same thing really seems to hold true. There's the question of being able to be a mighty force simply by virtue of the fact that that there are a couple of us, and we are in this moment together, right?
I love the metaphor from acceptance and commitment therapy, that the therapy can be like going up a mountain, except that you're not the guide going in front, you're not the expert climber, you're on a different mountain yourself. It's just that from where you stand, you can see the next step they need to take on their mountain, and they could do the same for you if that was their role. So I don't know when it happened, but I can remember the feeling of no longer feeling like the expert in a therapy session. And that was freeing. I guess it was when I really embraced solution-focused therapy, that when I genuinely believed they had the answer within them, you kind of have the automatic realization that means I don't have to have the answer. Oh, fantastic. And
I couldn't agree more. That's when it did it for me too, man. I don't have to be the wizard. Oh, man.
Yeah,
absolutely. It's almost like, well, if hope is magical, if the imagination is powerful, then we just need to get in there with them and have these conversations in a particular kind of environment that will set some sparks off. And for me, thinking about the future, and obviously there's more to solution-focused therapy than just thinking about the future, but framing things in that kind of way gives people an expectation for hope that they can then walk into, that it makes it far easier to attain. When they don't expect it, it just becomes like a self-fulfilling prophecy, as we know. It's unlikely to happen. when they see a future they hadn't even imagined was possible, when they feel what that feels like, and when you really break it down into the details, like say if I'm doing a miracle question or something like it with people, you don't just say, what does your life look like when the miracles happen? You say, what's the first thing you notice in the morning? And then what's the first thing someone else notices about you? And so you get, it's a real social aspect. You get them to look at someone else looking at them, you get them to imagine the tiny steps in their day, and kind of implicitly repeating the idea that hope is realistic. Actually, this can happen. It's just tiny steps, little changes, and actually it's realistic to expect this for you. It's powerful stuff, I think.
Yeah. Nice.
So I got an email today from a colleague who was asking about predicting number of sessions. And I don't necessarily predict number of sessions for clients, but do you, Graham, do you sell a session package? It seems hard to do in solution focused therapy because they might find their solution in one session.
Yeah, no, I don't. And I can't remember if this comes from solution focused therapy or motivational interviewing. But I read somewhere a number of years ago that statistically we may only have one session with people. That's very common. Someone will just come for one session.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore we can act as if we're just going to have one session with them. And that doesn't mean that I think I'm going to cure all their problems in one session, but I don't go into a session thinking I'll do that in session 3. I go into it thinking, what a privilege that someone's opening up their life to me here. Let's do something with it. So yeah, I go session by session.
Yeah,
that's right. It's a long-winded way to say that.
No, that's exactly what I was hoping you would share. Thank you very much.
I like this frame. What a privilege this is. Certainly changes the way that most people think about performing their job, or the way that they think about well, who's the big shot here in the in the first place. Any number of things, but this real orientation, and it makes me think, Graham, and I mentioned this. This is my lady. I am a big fan of Mother Teresa, particularly. And by the way, this is kind of like that deep trance identification thing. It may not be Mother Teresa I'm a fan of. It may be my hallucination about her, but I have a lovely hallucination about her. And one of the things that seemed to move her on was her mystical sense of that each of these pathetic souls that she was dealing with was Christ in some of his more distressing disguises. I think that's beautiful because it gave her the paradigm that she needed to be able to do that. And I always tell my students, it's not Mother Teresa that I'm advocating. What I'm advocating is that you have for yourself a paradigm that really makes a difference in terms of how you feel about your connection with clients. And the one that you're positing here is just really lovely.
I think it first struck me when I was doing pastoral counselling, which, as you'll know, often involves the grieving, people in the midst of divorce or family breakdown. And I went into ministry when I was 27. I'd been doing lots of preaching before that as a teenager. I was a missionary for a couple of years. Then I went to the Baptist ministry about 27. And sitting with like an 89-year-old woman who's telling me about how she's lost her partner of 60 years was just overwhelming. I thought, why on earth is she telling me this? Who am I to hear kind of such deep, powerful emotion? And that feeling has stuck with me, that, when you meet when you meet a teenager who comes out to you before they come out their parents, like, wow, we can brush that off with them and go, okay, well, what technique do I need to do now? How can I fix this situation for them? But for me, often just sitting there with that, thinking, wow, we're sharing lives together here. And going back to something I suggested earlier, they may not get to do that with many people. Mm-hmm. I know, they're paying for our time. We're not kind of just social friends in that sense, but it's precious.
Yeah, yeah. So here's this lovely, rich experience that we get to have, and as I'm looking at the clock, I want to make sure we move this in the right direction because given what we're saying now, I understand that something else that you've been doing is work in this area of therapeutic inductions, and we talked a little bit about that. I've got some thoughts about it. Uh, how I can't really ask you for what was that definition of therapeutic inductions because I think everybody knows what that is. But tell us a little bit about the approach that you use and so so we can get a feel for this.
Maybe I'll tell you where it started from. That might explains my foundation for it.
Great.
As is often common, because I was a pastor in church, I ended up going for counselling myself because of kind of the stress of the job. And the counsellor did a little bit of relaxation with me, which was mind-blowing. I'd never known anything like it. And then fast forward a number of years later, when I was hearing other hypnotists it wasn't more of a trend then than I think it is now. Hearing other hypnotists dismiss relaxation, particularly progressive muscle relaxation. They're saying, why would you do that when you can just knock them under and do the work? And I was just shaking my head thinking, the relaxation is the work. And it kind of grew from that. And I wasn't that experienced as a hypnotist when I had that strong conviction. But I saw Richard Nongard, I think in a video one time, talking about the induction as a learning experience. And I thought, well, this guy seems to know what he's talking about, so maybe I'm in the right direction. And so therapeutic inductions is just the simple idea that the induction is part of the therapy. It's not something you do to get them under. It sets the groundwork for therapy. It sets the ground rules. It's a learning experience. It's a reframe ritual. Just goes back to that idea of if we're trying to give someone a greater sense of control, you don't do an induction that takes the control away from them and then try to reverse that in the change work. The induction forms the foundation of the change work, sets the ground, sets the context. Yeah, it's quite a simple idea, but it's become really important to me in my practice.
What a beautiful way to put it. That why would you start out taking the control away from them and then try to build it back up in them? It's just a beautiful way to put it, Graham.
Well, it's like you wouldn't, although I'm kind of praising relaxation, you wouldn't work with an athlete who wants a greater sense of motivation by doing a PMR and get them so relaxed, and then you've got to build them up and kind of egg them up a bit. Why would you do that? You would find the induction that leads you to the place you need to be. So there's 3 questions I ask in therapeutic inductions. The first one is what resources do they have that they need to access to get where they want to be? The second question is what state of mind do they need to be in to access those resources? And then the third question is what experience do they need to get to that state of mind to access those resources? And that builds the induction. So my inductions aren't based around the personality type. They're not based around the professional role, because I often think that kind of evaluation can be presumptuous and a bit superficial sometimes. They're certainly not based around my favourite induction or what makes me feel comfortable. They're based around where the client wants to get to. So it all goes back to the solution-focused stuff.
Yeah.
It troubles me when I see even experienced hypnotists recommending to other people, you do the induction you feel comfortable with. This isn't about my comfort. No, I'm not the one paying here. We do the induction that's going to get us to where we want to go.
Nice. That's beautiful. So there are some things that occur to me in a number of inductions. So even people who have a handful, say, of standard inductions that they use regularly, one of the things that I'm really aware of about the inductions, all of the ones that are out there, all of the ones that we teach in class, each of them highlights some particular quality of experience. and works because of the quality that it highlights. So, for example, there's one that I have sort of borrowed and changed around a little bit from Richard Nongard that has to do with focusing on a spot that's, you know, off in the distance, and closing your eyes and continuing to see the spot, then moving it to a place halfway that far away, and then moving it to, just in front of your physical eyes, and then moving it to a place in behind your physical eyes. And all the while, the induction itself serves as a metaphor about how the client has the ability to change their focus, has the ability to manage what it is that they're paying attention to. So it's beginning to activate a resource that might be therapeutically very useful, depending on what it is that they're working on. And I like to think about inductions that way. Anyone that I learn, the question is, what does this offer? As well as, of course, the ones that you create, and the questions that you've got are just lovely in terms of moving in that direction.
Yeah, I guess I tend to think what therapeutic end is this induction serving? And for me, it's not about, the induction isn't done to get them under hypnosis. I think the research really questions that idea. It's the induction is serving a particular therapeutic end, or it's making a particular therapeutic end more likely. And so if I'm working with someone and they'll start off by talking about their problem, I might say, so if you don't want that, what do you want? You know, we'll build up solutions. And I go along with the 3 questions. What kind of resources do they have that will get them to that place? What mindset do they need to be in to use those resources? And what induction will give them the experience that will help them tap into those resources? It's really simple stuff, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that. And again, it can't be done. No, this is going to sound like an outrageous thing to say, but it can't be done without the client.
Absolutely. At
all. Can't even be thought about.
No.
Yeah, that is so beautiful. All right. You do a number of workshops around this technique. Is that right? Or it's not a technique. What would you call it? I'm struggling for words.
I think of it as an approach, a way to be with people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we've got it's bad timing really. We've got training coming up this coming weekend in Northampton in the UK.
I'll fly over.
So you're all welcome to fly over for that. No problem. We do that training once or twice a year. We're also developing a training around therapeutic communication, which is really getting back to the basics of, again, how you be with people. Mm-hmm. On the one hand, I feel quite passionate about that, but I also, the pessimist in me wonders if there's enough interest in it. Because as hypnotists, we often, like I say, we believe around hype. We believe we got the magic cure to fix people, and being told that we need to go back and relearn about what it really means to listen. Who's got time for that?
Yeah.
But I really want to develop training around that more. We've got some ideas. And I'm also just starting working on a training looking at improvisational comedy and therapy, and how the kind of two can learn from each other, which is really, really exciting. Who knows where that's going to go? Yeah, that's exciting.
I think that's really exciting. I think that improv work is really, I think stage hypnosis comes in handy for even a clinical hypnotist, just to learn some of those things. You never know when you might use it. And I think improv work is really an important thing to do, to learn flexibility and to stay with the moment and to be able to think on your feet.
I think it was, I was reading Tina Fey's autobiography.
Yeah.
Where she gives the 4 rules of improv. And just the first one hit me as so Ericksonian. Which is just about always say yes. Whatever comes up, always say yes. And I kind of thought, oh, that's Ericksonian utilization. And the further I read down the rules and kind of thought about improv, I was like, actually, this is really similar to what we do. But it's getting back to some of those foundational skills of how we communicate with people and work with them. Again, so not my offering or what we do in our training isn't about giving people super duper techniques they can go away and say, Graham, I'll talk with this amazing thing. it's far more basic than that. But I think when done in the correct way, like I say, when done with the correct spirit, and it even shows in your eyes, it's beyond technique, I think.
So, Graham, do you ever work with groups? I mean, you're talking a lot about, tailor the induction to the particular client. Does that eliminate group work, or do you also do group work?
I do family work. I don't do groups beyond that, but I do kind of parents and children. And they're often in a joint trance, particularly the parents, often against the child. So they will have their own goal. And I guess it's a sense of chunking up and finding the thing they have in common. So it doesn't like being shouted at. They don't want to shout at Johnny. That's something to work on, even if they both blame the other. You've got at least one to work from.
But you would then never do a group smoking session or a group relaxation session or anything like that. You would not do work that in that format.
I have done them. I don't think that's where my strengths lie. Yeah, I think there's people who, particularly in my town, there's a number of hypnotists who like doing that sort of thing. So, they can go for it.
Anything can work. Anything can work. I mean, when you have that contract with you have a group of people who pay you to help them quit smoking. Some of those people are going to quit smoking.
Yeah.
Because that's the dynamic of the thing anyway. Along those same lines, how do you feel, and I'm not imposing this on anybody else, I'm asking for your opinion, your input, about pre-recorded processes that people sell on their website or put out there for folks to use?
Thank you for emphasizing that this is just my opinion.
And I'm not trying to impose this. I'm just going with your theories and your ideas. Some of these things just don't seem to sit well in this arena.
I can't help thinking there must be a place for it, but I personally haven't found what that place is. Is that a fair answer?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it goes back to the exact same thing I was saying with groups too, is it depends. If somebody believes that they can lose weight by buying 5 weight loss CDs and they listen to them and they're dedicated and they do the work and they listen every morning and every night, they've already bought into the idea of doing it. So they've already hypnotized themselves to do it, and they've convinced themselves that these tapes are going to help them.
Yeah, I've done a number of recordings for individuals, which is slightly different because you get to know them a bit.
Right.
And you can know it more. I personally haven't done any generic recordings, but I think if you have an effective enough pre-talk, and you get out there with the notion of possibilities and exploring the possibilities, I think that could possibly sit with the sort of approach that I take. But it's not currently for me.
Right. And you have a book in your inductions. Is that a book or is that a training? Did I misunderstand that?
It's both. So
Okay.
we do a weekend training in therapeutic inductions. I've also got a series of books called Inductions Masterclass and one book called Therapeutic Inductions.
Therapeutic Inductions, that's the one I was looking for. And is that available on Amazon?
It is, yes.
Good, okay.
Much like your own good book.
I am going to put a link to it actually in the chat room.
I'll just say that I've recommended your book to a number of people for the elegance of it. I think it's great.
What a nice thing for you to say. Oh my goodness.
I'm a nice guy.
Thank you. I'm going to use that as a testimonial now. I'm going to put that on the homepage. Graham Old says it's okay. I might have to get a video of you. I'm going to look for this link, Michael. So
while you're doing that, I want to piggyback on what you were saying about things like recordings and stuff like that. Just to throw another log on the fire or whatever with the appropriate metaphor. I have a feeling that anything can work for people who are ready for it to work, and so many things that we haven't even thought of. And the metaphor that was occurring to me as I was hearing it is that there are pieces of music that are almost universally appreciated. But there's some people who go, hey, that's not quite the one for me, or that's not quite the one for me. A live hypnotist can be responsive to and adjust what it is that he's doing to the person that he's working with. A recording never has that option. But that doesn't mean that it may be a really pretty tune, and it may be one that works just fine for for a whole bunch of folks. Because sometimes I think clients aren't quite as complicated as we seem to need them to be. So
Yeah.
I mean there's my two my tuppence, in the thing.
While we're recommending books, can I mention 2 books for the listeners?
Please do.
One is a book coming out in December called The Critique of Aggression by a Freudian psychoanalyst called Gregory Rizzolo. I think it's really interesting that as hypnotists are clinging on to regression, Freudians are actually moving away from it to a certain degree. The other one is a book called The Memory Illusion by Dr. Julia Shaw. It talks about the science of memory, the science of forgetting, and false memories. Both really, really interesting books if you want to be persuaded by my opinion.
Can you tell me the name of the first one again, Graham? Because your voice broke just for a second right on
The Critique of Regression by Gregory Rizzolo.
Something regression? I'm missing a word. Critique?
Yes.
There we go. Okay. Great. So we're just putting some things in the group chat. I think Karen is actually looking up links.
I just did the link to Graham's Therapeutic Inductions on Amazon, and I think once we get there, obviously we can find your other books there, Graham. That's a good start.
Well, all right. So ka-ching, buy some books here because you've already heard enough to know that Graham is really a special guy, and there's
this is the way of the future.
All it takes is the press of your index finger on the mouse, or however it is that you do it at your house, and that book can be yours right now.
That's right.
So Graham, you mentioned to me as we were talking in the last couple of days about the possibility of something that you might be able to demonstrate with us. Would this be a good time to do that?
Yeah, we could do. I can do it with everyone if you want.
All right. And this answers the other question, by the way, about what do you do with groups, or what can you do with groups? So it seems.
Yeah, I'm going to do it with everyone because I'm going to presume a background to it.
All right.
So this is a as I was talking about relaxation, it's a variation of PMR that was developed for a client who came to see me and said he's really, really tense and he can't relax. Which some people might take as resistance, him simply saying he can't relax. I took that as perhaps him not quite knowing what relaxation was. So if you want to imagine that you're in that situation, and kind of I'll do what I did with him.
All right. I'm really tense and I can't relax.
Shall I begin?
Sure, please.
Okay. If you'd like to get yourselves comfortable and just go into this however you go into it. So if you imagine you're willing or able to become slightly less tense, just imagine what it might do to your eyelids. Some people's eyes might close gently. Some people's eyes might stay open. However you respond to that is perfectly fine. And just become aware as you breathe of that tension in your body. Some people imagine every time they breathe out, they're letting a bit of that tension go. And you don't have to make that happen. That may just happen automatically by itself. And now what I'd like you to do, and it may sound slightly strange, I'd like you to find a spot of tension in your body. Just one tiny spot, maybe about the size of a 2p piece. I guess a dime for you guys. Just find a spot of tension, maybe in your shoulders, maybe one of your legs, maybe in your big toe. Just focus in on one spot of tension. And no doubt this is a feeling that you know well. So Notice whatever it is you notice about that tension. There's no right or wrong way for your body to respond to this. You can simply experience what you experience. But notice what that tension feels like. Is it moving? Is it still? Is it buzzing? Is it variable? Can you maybe picture a color? Become fully acquainted with that tension that we often spend so long resisting and fighting against. I want you to almost, even if just temporarily, welcome that tension. And now, I'd like you to find another spot of tension and maybe imagine the two linking up. Maybe now you can become aware of another spot of tension. This tension that you carry so well. And you can either allow those points of tension to link up, like they're becoming a network in your body, where you can just allow the general feeling to spread. Not so it's uncomfortable, but so it's that old familiar tension you know so well. And when you've really got a handle on that, you can just allow it to fade back, reverting back down to that one point of tension. And as you breathe out, you can let the rest of that tension go and focus in on that one spot of tension. And now I'd like you to find another place in your body, it could be anywhere, where you feel the lack of tension. I don't know what that feels like for you. I imagine it's different for everyone. But just notice an area, again, just the size of a small coin maybe to start, an area where there's a lack of tension. And notice how big that is. Notice if it's still, is it variable? Is it moving, buzzing? Does it have a color? Become fully acquainted with that lack of tension. And then maybe allow that to slowly spread. You don't have to make it happen. Maybe each time you breathe out, you become more aware of the lack of tension, more acquainted with that feeling. Maybe it's spread from one spot, or maybe you can notice more than one spot of tension and they begin to link up. And allow that to increase and become acquainted with that. And you may already know that people call this lack of tension by different things. Some people call it ease. Some people call it comfort. I know some people who call it relaxation. What you call it isn't really relevant. The important thing is that you know this feeling. And you get to become more comfortable with it and acquainted with it. And it begins to feel as natural to you as your own breath. And just allow that relaxation to continue spreading in its own easy way throughout your body. And as that happens in the background, I'd like to tell you about a trip I took to India. This was maybe 20 years ago. And we would sit on the beach in India and watch the sunrise. An amazing experience as we saw that light come up. And I'm not really a beach kind of guy. I'm more about water, about the sea. I don't like sunbathing. I love seeing the waves. And there was a boy who used to be there every morning when we were watching the sunrise. And he would run to the water's edge and he would fall down on his knees and look into the water at his reflection. And I heard him run back one time to speak to his granddad afterwards. And he said that, "Granddad, I couldn't see my reflection." And what had happened, obviously, is as he'd fallen down on his knees to look into the water, the sand had kind of puffed up under the water and had clouded the reflection. And he started talking to his granddad about the photos of him at home. And he said, when I look in the water, I don't look anything like I do in those photos. And his granddad said to him, that's not you in the photos, that's merely a moment in time. That's a snapshot of the crazy, energetic, wonderful, marvelous child that you are. If you really want to know what you look like, you have to look into water, into the waves, into the sand that throws up. You have to look into that energy, that life. That's who you are. And I've thought about that boy fairly often. And I've wondered if he knew the significance of his granddad's words. And I thought about how much I enjoy being by the sea. In my hometown, you can hear the seagulls, and it's right by the main road. You can hear the traffic. But nothing takes away that experience of, even in the midst of all that energy, just being able to feel that ease and comfort and lack of tension. And in a moment, I'm going to be silent for a few seconds. And after that, you can, in your own time, just allow yourself to gradually re-emerge from this lack of tension, back to your usual self, perhaps with new lessons you've learned, maybe with new skills you've found, maybe answers to questions you had, maybe things still percolating in your mind. But just allow yourself in a moment to come back to full awareness, ready to go on this further journey of learning about yourself.
Well, welcome back. Graham, that was lovely, by the way.
Yes, it was.
And as I'm reorienting, I can't help but tell you that I thought that there was an excellent opportunity to prank you if I had simply sent a note to everyone in the chat room to not come back.
Your eyes were closed. How would we have ever seen it?
I've been sat here for hours.
Because I didn't want to, and I suspect that there may be some other folks that really would like to have hung out in there. And so here are some things that really are generalizable concepts enough that that everybody in the room I think was able to take advantage of that experience as much as the audio and the environment and wherever they are allowed for that. I think that Antonio Perez actually is on the beach in Hawaii at the moment.
Just showing off, really. That's all Antonio's doing, just showing off.
So relaxing may be very difficult.
That's the scene I was picturing, though. That was lovely. Thank you for providing that, Antonio.
So really, Graham, that was great. And just looking at the clock, again, I want to make sure that we get a chance if anybody has a particular question that they would like to ask directly to Graham, now would be the best time to do that. Just feel. I think the easiest way to do it is to, if you have a question and you wanna ask it, just go ahead and unmute your microphone. It's down in the bottom left of your screen, and say, hi Graham, here's my question. And until they do that, of course, we will do patter songs. And sometimes, folks just don't have questions to ask because they're. And I think, by the way, as the Cranberries would say, some of them have let it linger. You know, and we're getting a nice little lull after that that beautiful track.
Okay.
Right. That is a wonderful thing. I am curious, Graham, whether or not you ever were taught and tried the wizard approach to hypnosis.
My very first training was with Jonathan Chase, the stage hypnotist. And that was good because it taught me that I could do hypnosis and I could hypnotize people. So for a little while, that's what I did because it just boosted my confidence massively. I saw that we can do these techniques and they work. But it just didn't fit with me and everything I think about how the world works or how I like to be with people.
And yet stopped you from having to carry that, can I actually do this, you know, into your own growth and development, that so many people just really struggle to the broom that they have to jump over. I think
I love having exploratory experiences with people, which I think I would lose that if I took an authoritative, this is what's going to happen, this is what we're going to do. It works for some people, and maybe it's what some people need. I love, as cheesy as it might sound, I love going on journeys with people and sharing experiences.
God, me too. I love the diversity of a big city, having all sorts of input on things. And I don't know that anybody gets more diversity of thought than hypnotists, because we get to see inside the mind of all sorts of people who are thinking all sorts of things, and they share that with us. I just think it's miraculous that we get to know all of that stuff.
Yeah.
It's so neat.
Some people think you have to go to the Grand Canyon to have a vacation.
Right.
So this is all very lovely. I guess one thing that we might do just to kind of wrap this, because in a minute we've got to make some final announcements and all that. But before we go, and Graham, I apologize in advance for putting you on the spot with this. I'm just wondering if you meet somebody who is just taken an interest in hypnosis and they have no idea where to start. What would be your opening message to somebody who says, I'd like to get involved with that? What would you want them to know?
I think I would obviously direct them to years of Michael Watson. That goes without saying. But I think predominantly I would start with experiences. So the kind of hypnosis without trance approach can be useful in that sense because it can jump straight to experience. And that gives them the confidence that I talked about that I got from Jonathan Chase. They see something happening, but it also, I think, frames things quite nicely, that hypnosis is something that creates new possibilities. So I'm a massive fan of magnetic hands, which is almost as simple as you can get, but can have so many different reactions, can go in so many different directions. And I teach people that an induction should always be an experience, not just a cognitive exploration. So I think maybe I would go straight for phenomena with people.
Yeah.
And then once you get that, you're hooked. Once you see the possibilities of the mind, you're in.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, so ladies and gentlemen, and hang on here, Graham, don't go away for a second, but I just need to do a little bit of business, and that is remind everybody that this is the virtual chapter of IACT IMDHA with affiliations with the IHF and the ICBCH and LMNOP. Oh wait, we haven't got that one yet, but we're going to get it shortly. And it's been great to spend this time with you. The recording of this evening's program will be available tomorrow. I try to get it done in the first half of the day, and I will do my best. But sometime tomorrow, it will be posted on the IACT IMDHA forum. It will be posted in the virtual chapter group on Facebook. And also, by the way, the virtual chapter has a YouTube channel. and we just never really talk about it, but they're all in that one directory, and we simply post them from there to Facebook. So feel free to subscribe to the Virtual Chapter Facebook or YouTube channel rather, and you'll get our videos whenever whenever there is another one. So with all that said, all I can tell you, Graham, is it's time for you to get some rest, young man.
Thank you for staying up with us.
And we really do appreciate that you did that. And what we are going to do now is what you actually commented to be having noticed of our madness here. I am going to momentarily unmute all of the microphones, and the great cacophony of love and affection and appreciation for what you have shared with us tonight. We all want to be able to wish you a lovely evening, and thanks for being with us. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Graham.
Thank you, Graham.
Thanks for staying up and talking with us all. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Graham.
Now I have to get back to the beach.
There he is. All right.
It's a hard life, Antonio, but somebody's got to live it. So
With all these bikinis walking by, it's a hard life.
easy.
So good night, everybody. We'll see you all next month with Mark Andreas. And
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
See you later.
Good night.
Night.